Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well during this Christmas season. Today, remember my tagline for my blogs and videos, if you've ever taken the time to look, I call it Random Musings. And so we're going to really get off the rails today on a random musing. I want to talk to you. I've entitled today's video and blog, Buried Like a Donkey. Buried Like a Donkey. And I got it from a passage of scripture that I read earlier this morning in my devotion. I don't know, it just really resonated with me. Maybe it's because of my line of work or whatever. But anyway, and I'll just kind of read through my notes here. In my Bible reading earlier this morning, I read the pronouncement of God's judgment on one of the evil kings, Jehoiakim. And here it is. It's Jeremiah 22:19. It says, "With the burial of a donkey he shall be buried, dragged and dumped beyond the gates of Jerusalem." In other words, instead of being honored like a king in his burial, sort of like roadkill, you know, a donkey or a deer gets hit and you just drag it to the side of the road or drag it then somebody comes by and picks it up and takes it to the city dump. And this is what I wrote in my prayer journal. The way a culture treats their dead reflects their spiritual health. And I'm talking about the spiritual health of the culture. And this reminded me because I heard about this poll that came out today from a couple of different sources. I've included one in the notes, a link. But I was reminded of the recent cold-blooded murder of the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. And a poll came out yesterday that showed that 41% of adults under the age of 30 consider the killing of Mr. Thompson acceptable. Now, if there's any indictment, we talk about, taking prayer out of school, and we no longer teach the Bible, or we no longer teach morality. Man, there's your case for what happens when you take morality, the teaching of ethics and having absolutes out of educating our young people. Okay, 40% that consider the killing of Mr. Thompson acceptable. And 40% said it was unacceptable. So what's that? 19% of young people don't know for sure. Just couldn't make up their mind. Overall, get this, 68% of all adults in America felt that it was unacceptable. And so that means that 32% of our population feels like it's okay. If you don't like what somebody's doing, if you don't like them, walk up behind them, shoot them in the back, kill your enemies. So if you need any further evidence of the decline of our country's spiritual and morality, of the health of our country, you need to look no further. Just shoot somebody in the back like a donkey, drag them off, forget about it, move on. But now, that led me to another thought here. I don't want to get all preachery on you today, but that should grieve all of our hearts. But let's talk about funerals in particular. That's what this passage that I read in my Bible this morning is talking about. This is how this king's going to be buried. And listen to this. The king being buried like a donkey was not so much a reflection of the man's wickedness as much as it was a reflection of the people's wickedness. Okay? Good or bad, every human, born or unborn, I might add, is an image bearer of God. We're made in the image of God. That is why God is so opposed to murder. It's an affront to him. It's like defacing a statue or defacing a special work of art. When we attack a fellow human being, when we shed blood, innocent or uninnocent, and when we take it into our own hands, vigilante justice, strike out in anger, Cain and Abel, and on it goes, the sad history of mankind. When we do that, it is an affront to God. because we're all image bearers. And so the way we treat our dead, whatever how they lived, the way we treat our dead is more of a reflection on us than it is them. Now, and so that led me to funerals. I've had a front row seat on this decline of how we treat our dead, how we bury our dead. I've been in the ministry now 45 years. And so I've done myself, I have officiated probably thousands of funerals and attended thousands more in these years. So I've had a front row seat. And when I started out as a young minister, funerals were a big deal, a church-wide. I mean, the whole church got involved, the whole community got involved, the county got involved. It was a huge deal for almost there was no insignificant funeral. But today, increasingly, and I've just seen a gradual decline as the years have gone by, increasingly, they're almost an afterthought. Something that is quickly done with the least amount of expense and effort and the least use of our time. For example, it's not uncommon for someone to die and be quickly and quietly buried, and maybe months later, family and friends will get together somewhere, maybe even in resort places, they'll get together and they'll have a memorial service, which is just kind of a quickly thing done, and then they spend the rest of the time having fun. And simple, quickly done graveside services is almost the norm now. Now, I'm not here to put you on a guilt trip, but I am here to make us think. And so please understand, I despise predator funeral directors who prey on people during their time of vulnerability to add to the cost of funerals unnecessarily. So I'm not promoting putting on a big show. Matter of fact, people who try to assuage their guilt for how they treated their dead while the dead was alive, or people who try to put on a show and impress the community, their family, extended family and friends and church, but with all of their wealth, they're fooling no one. If anything, they're making a fool out of themselves. But having said that, it says something tragic about our nation and ourselves when honoring the dead is no longer a priority and no longer considered a solemn duty of a family and a community. So I want to close with some closing advice on how to honor your dead. First of all, plan on honoring your dad. You plan on honoring your dead by saving money designated for the purpose. I see people more and more people die and families have no money for it. They haven't planned. It's not a priority. You spend your money on what is a priority, and honoring the dead is not a priority for people. And so it's not uncommon at all for families to have not saved any money, or you can buy an insurance policy. You can buy an insurance policy for your child for pennies and let them carry and make sure you plan for inflation, and they can carry it for the rest of their life. It can be paid up by the time they're adults often. So plan. Honoring your dead is a priority. It's a God-given responsibility that dead loved one, their body will be resurrected someday. It is a part of the image of God. And so plan on honoring your dead by saving money. Plan on honoring your dead, by honor your dad and your mom and everybody. But that's a different commandment. But plan to honor them by planning the service well in advance. Have conversations with your loved ones. Find out what their desires are. Let it be a tribute to them. Third, insert dignity at the funeral service. Bring your best. If you're super casual, this ought to be at least once or twice in your life when you get married and when you bury your dead, bring your best. Dress up, whatever that is, but bring your best. Consult yourself with dignity as a family. This is a time to close rank and show your class as a family. Okay? I encourage you to have your pastor or their pastor, not a pastor or not some guy, some MC. But if you don't have a pastor, there's a world of difference between saying, call the pastor, and saying, call my pastor. But burying the dead is one of the rites, R-I-T-E, of honoring them. It's a deeply significant spiritual thing. It's something that separates us from the animals. Have a priest, a pastor, someone that represents God, who will remind us all of the dignity of life and the dignity of the eternal soul, that will point us to God, remind us of the judgment, that our life here on earth matters, that everything we do matters. Have your pastor or the pastor of your loved one be there to point us to beyond the grave and the significance of the grave. And finally, live your own life in such a way that you deserve to be honored when you die. And that's the tragedy of this king. The people should have buried him with dignity no matter what. But the reason those people, they drifted so far away from God, they had no fear of God, no reverence for the image of God. And so just like roadkill, they hated this guy. They got like the man that 40%, 41% of young people, 32% of our nation said, hey, it's justified. That guy deserved to be shot in the back. Live your life in such a way that you deserve to be honored. Now, how your family treats you and how your society treats you, that's going to be a reflection on them. But do everything within your part and within your power to live a life that deserves to be buried with honor. All right, the one thing for the day, the way you honor your dead says far more about you than it does them. God bless you. Talking about some random musings. I know you didn't see that coming, but maybe it'll make you think. Take care. Blessings to you all.